Welcome. I'm so excited because this is a realm of possibility where my left brain and my heart meets. And raise your hand if you think that you're more of a left brain person, but you're walking towards the heart. Yeah. And if you were already a very heart person and you've struggled to go to the left brain, no, yes, yeah, you are. we identify, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. So either way, we're on this path, and hopefully we can converge in the middle because, well, we are meant to be heart creatures, but this is such intellectual information for now. When we live it out and we practice it, it then dissolves and trickles down into the heart, and that's where the magic happens. So if you have any questions at all during, there are no silly questions. Ask away. Please ask at any time and interrupt at any time. Okay. And I am by no means an expert on this topic, nor can I even say that I was formally trained by some entity. I did take training for it, but we all have knowledge to contribute to this because there's an amalgamation of so much information, including those of us who are very familiar with astrology, which I am not. So if you have a comment, an insight, a question, please don't hesitate. So blah, blah, blah. That's who I am, maybe in the body. But I wanted to point this out because there's just some context as to when did I come upon human design? I had my awakening in 2018 when my employer accused me of some horrendous things, and I had to go through that tumultuous time of shedding all these layers of my identity. And then later on, fast forward to after the pandemic, during the heyday of me figuring out what am I doing with my career. I've been a teacher for a long time. That was when I discovered human design, and it was through another life coach. She was very much using it as a tool to coach others. So I took courses with her. I took courses independently. And then last fall, some of you in here know my other spiritual awakening, my second one. And then now, in relation to my human design, all of that stuff since the awakening has been sort of like it was pre-written, this awakening, or these circumstances were pre-written, and you could see it in your chart. You could see how uniquely you were designed. And so I really love, again, that merging of the heart and of the mind and coming together to tell you that you are so uniquely made. We're all one, but we are all not one in the multiplicity, the unique way in which you are designed specifically, because each of us serve a specific purpose in this lifetime. So anywho, that's that. So today we're really only going to go over these three things that we may not even get to authority. We may not have time because the type and strategy already takes up quite a bit of time. But in part two, we'll go into authority and all the other realms. This is the I Ching. This is the Kabbalah. This is the Hindu chakra, the Brahmin chakra system. This is astrology, planets. This is all of that combined. And so when you look at this graphic here, you'll see the I Ching, those of us who are very familiar with it, the I Ching hexagrams on the outside. You'll see numbers corresponding to it, 64. Does anyone know how many codes there are in our DNA sequence? 64. Yeah. Yes. Is that a coincidence? It never is. So that's a fascinating realm. I have books upon books, but I've only scratched the surface. And then here, you'll notice that this looks very familiar to you if you see or have seen the Jewish tree of life, or excuse me, the Jewish Kabbalah tree of life. It's upside down. If you know your chakra system, you'll traditionally know that there's 7, right? From your root all the way to your crown. Well, in this system, there's 9. No worries, there's no quiz, but it's just all gonna come together. And this dude channeled it in the late 70s, of course, which is why we're all here. Who knew? So let's just do a quick Q&A here, right? And feel free to listen or read or zone out. Human design is really it's really all about how you were meant to move in this world. And by meant to, there is no should or shouldn't, of course. But how do I put it? If this cell phone were meant to move smoothly on a surface, well, it would probably have wheels. If it had wheels, it could move purposely on the surface, but it doesn't have wheels, therefore it has other functions. I suppose if it had wheels, we wouldn't be able to use it as a cell phone as easily. What I'm trying to say is that human design is really all about showing you who you really were made to, whether you have wheels or whether you're shaped this way or whether you have this proclivity. And in doing so, the more you that you are, the more smooth you move through life, the more in alignment you are in life, the more things, well, we all know spiritually at least that things are happening for us, but the more that you can integrate that, because on a deepest level, you already know that. So what I love about human design, it's really all just a returning to who you really are. And for me, as a very left brain person, I needed that to absorb that information, to reaffirm who I am, first on an intellectual level, but then something magical happened where all of that information, again, trickled down and dissolved. And now there's a whole integration of my spiritual self pulling from the intellectual and it coming together to reaffirm, yeah, Cheryl, you being you is excellent. You being you is excellent. You being you is amazing. Be who you really are. If you really think about the most successful people in the world, or at least the ones we know, well-known people, you know, it could be Gandhi, whoever, they were just them, right? The more them they are, I mean, even Steve Jobs, the more you they were, the more them they were, excuse me, the more light and amplification and effect and impact that they. So I really think that that's what we're here on Earth to do. And we're just simply removing the barriers to knowing who we are. Energetic alignment, I know Robert has done some Reiki and all of us have done, or many of us have been exposed to energy and energy workings. If we are talking about energy in terms of human design, then think of it as the deconditioning of anything that blocks the right kind of energy, or the, not even right or wrong, the energy that you need or you already have, with which, again, saying it over and over, to be yourself. How does it work? Birth information, it turns out, and I might butcher this, you may have to look this up later, that when you were born, and also when your soul came into your body before you were born or in this incarnation, there's two levels at human design. The neutrinos, and I'm not a physicist, these elements that are in space and in this 3D world were projected onto you, whether through the planets, whether through the energy of the world, through the cosmos and the universe. And in doing so, there was a you that was formed prior to birth. And then there was a you that was formed the moment that you came out of your mother's body. Yeah. And that was how your proclivities, your blueprint, your design was determined. On a bigger level, if any of you have read, you know, pre-birth planning books, fascinating stuff, and I love it. Your soul has also chosen those specific things. So you could say your soul probably knew exactly when to incarnate into that, you know, embryo fetus baby inside the womb. And then your soul kind of also chose when to come in so many ways, right? Even if it was a C-section, kind of your higher self chose it, you know, something like that. Something like that. So how do we just be ourselves, and therefore, instead of swimming upstream, swim freely, or even better, swim downstream in life, swim downstream. In our capitalist American society, we really only honor or respect if you swim upstream, right? Pull yourself up by your bootstrap. If you're not struggling, then you're not, I don't know, American or human. This is kind of the opposite, hence the deconditioning. And to live the life that we're meant to live, decrease that friction, And it's all really to say that human design is an experiment. It's not something, and we say this in theosophy, right? It doesn't have to be your belief system. In any way, beliefs are just thoughts you repeat over and over. You don't have to believe in these tools for it to be beneficial for you. Take what resonates, leave the rest. And the cool thing is that so much didn't resonate with me at first. I mean, a lot did, but so much only resonated with me as I lived out my awakenings, my life, my shitty circumstances, overcoming it, all that stuff. A lot really just revealed itself to me over time. So if you take a break from human design and then come back weeks, months, years later, you'll discover, holy cow, I mean, that was kind of already written or pre-made or pre-designed, and that was me. And I'm wonderful, I'm loved, and I'm uniquely made. So it's a long process, of course, but I guess that is why we're here in this lifetime, in this body. Okay, so let's get right to it. Can your human design change? What do you all think? Because I mean, things like core values.
Like your birth path doesn't change.
No, it can't, right? I mean, at least in this in one time I yeah. It can't. However, what can change is your relationship to it, of course, as it should. And so depending on your perceptions, depending on the influence of your perceptions, that will change. And it seems like on paper that'll change, but really there's just incredible layers that probably we in our limited capacity as humans will never be able to understand the extent of the depth of our design until we lose the body and we're in the causal or astral plane, and then we can discover it. But no, the short answer is your design doesn't change because you chose it, right? But what changes will be your relationship and your perception of those energies and the influence of planets and all of that will fluctuate and change. Yeah. And keep in mind that we experience all the energies in our blueprint again as the planets transit, and that I'm definitely not an expert in. Those of us who are into astrology a lot more, and you please do chime in and tell us. Okay, and then what if I don't know my exact birth? That's okay. You can guesstimate when you look up your chart later. You can do chunks of time, like morning from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. Search as if you were born in that bracket. And then search for another bracket and search, and then compare all the results and see if there's huge differentiations or fluctuations. Then you can kind of choose which one you think matches you the best. If you don't know your exact time, it's okay. Yeah. And then, of course, location makes a difference because it's where the planets were at your specific country or location. And if anyone wants to look theirs up, all you need to do is, this is the one that I like, Jovian Archive, because they're tied to that genetic matrix, the 64 DNA codes. They're kind of very old school analogy on the internet. So I like that. But the moment you Google, find your chart, there are at least 20 different ways to get your chart. Yeah. You want to make sure that you enter the information correctly. Jane Doe, 66, 10:25 a.m., Paris, France. There might even be a slight difference if you're born in Everett versus Seattle. There is, but that's okay. Don't get overly analytical about it. These are all the things that are going to come up in your chart. And today, we really only have time to go through the first 2 or 3. But it seems and looks complicated. Piecemeal it and only learn one thing at a time. Yeah. Low-hanging fruit and baby steps. Okay. Any comments, questions, thoughts so far? Anything at all? How many of you know your chart, or at least know your type? You've looked it up at least. Yeah, so half, yeah. What are you, Punja?
My next is generator.
You are a generator, yes. The majority of us are, so we'll get into that right now, actually. Just a reminder again what that graphic visually looks like, right? And when you zoom in, you could see the hexagrams on here. You could see certain numbers lit up in relation to how it connects. You could see numbers in here that correspond directly to here, We'll talk all about that very briefly. You could see pathways or channels between gates. That's also a really fun thing. There's open and closed circuits and channels. The more complicated it gets, don't overanalyze it, just learn one thing at a time. All right. Oh, brief overview. We're going to ignore all these numbers here, but if you really want to know, the left side, it's that unconscious, subconscious part of you that you sort of chose before you were even born. They say about 90 days before you were born. And there's something to it because when babies come in, they don't move, or mothers don't feel movement until a certain time. And there are schools of thought that say, you know, that's when really the soul is out here floating about from the time you were conceived, right? You're not in your body yet, but then later, as the body grows bigger, then you kind of come in for that human experience and you're kind of floating in and out. But that final marker of you deciding, okay, I am going to be born in this body, I am going to be incarnate here, is right before the umbilical cord is cut, apparently. Yeah. What does that have to do with human design? Well, there's two sets of numbers, right? The set of information or numbers come from those 90 days, I believe it's 90, before you were born, and that comes from when you were born. Subconscious or unconscious, your true dharmic path, your true word self, and this is the part of you that you already know and you're very aware of consciously. So if you wanted to know the distinguishment, what else do we know here? There are all these shapes, right? And there's 9 of them. Each one represents a center. And then what we have here are channels. Any shape that has no color in it, it looks empty. They just call it an undefined center. In part 2, we'll learn about that. Anything that has color is a defined center. So define, right? Undefined, pretty easy to figure out. And then the hanging gate is when the gate is active on your chart, but it's not part of a channel. Again, the hanging gate, it kind of goes here, but then that gate is not activated, so it just really only goes here. It's hanging halfway. Planets are here. What are these numbers, Cheryl? The first number is the gate. Okay, the second is your profile line. Very complex. We'll get into it later. And then let's see, what else did I not explain? Yeah, and then the numbers are the gates corresponding to the I Ching gates, the hexagrams, the 64 codes and DNA. But yes, this is the chart with which the mechanics of your blueprint, i.e. your energy, is broken down into categories and shapes and sizes and assortments, right? And it shows all your potential, and it shows what you're consciously aware of, you know, what just is for you in this incarnation. Exactly like your astrological sign, you know, if you're a Taurus in your sun sign, which I am, you know, there's certain traits that are active on my conscious chart in that way. But then it turns out there's all these other things about me that have led to a lot of challenges and resistance, and we're made to merge these two together. There you go. Again, please feel free to ask questions at any time. Today, real quick, it is fun to just sort of preview this for you for part 2. In part 2, we're going to see what each of the centers are about. And those of us who know anything about chakras, I mean, it's more or less almost the same thing, except that this has 9 instead of 7. Those of you who have, let's say, an undefined G center or an identity center, probably in this life, and I have an undefined one, you tether to other people's identities first. It's just part of your dharmic path. But if you have a defined one, you really already know a lot about your 3D identity, at least, right? You know what profession you're probably going to choose, you know what things you're good at, things like that. The head, the mind. Notice that there are two separate parts of the top, right? The head and the crown versus the mind and the ajna. I have a very defined ajna, clearly. Like anyone you know who's very analytical, very book smart, academic, intellectual, they probably have a defined mind or ajna. I don't think my head is defined though, so that makes for very interesting challenges. Yeah. Any questions so far? Just sitting here and glancing at this. Yeah, comments, things that you notice, patterns. You know, so I have as generators, there are certain elements that we have as defined, the sacral, the life force directly, or kundalini, so to speak. If you have that defined, you have a very powerful life force. You're probably more than a generator, at least statistically, and I'll show you those percentages. But generators have to have a defined sacral because we are the builders of this earth. We need that life force with which to create more life. I mean, not that we're creating, you know, plant life or life, but we are co-creating that life force in order for the planet to be what it is. We have to have that. But other people are not meant to have that because they're not meant to be builders of this earth, right? They're meant to maybe be initiators, be innovators, be telling others what to build. And so all of these being whatever millions of variations it could be on a chart, you can see just how unique every individual is.
Zhar, I have a question.
Yeah.
What if you have a defined center, but what that looks like doesn't feel true to you? Does that mean like something from your unconscious could be blocking that, or what could that look like?
It's not, again, with human design, it's not a it is or isn't.
Okay.
The more you let loose, it's kind of like a knotted necklace, right? The more that you like really try to untangle it, it's just, but the more that you lightly massage it, it really somehow untangles itself. I would say, what was the defined center for you?
The one that you just, identity, that you just, I was
identity.
Right.
Yeah, yes.
I was like, I struggled with that for a while. But now it feels like I'm untangling it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Underneath what society gave you as your identity, you always knew more than others. And you had a proclivity to know more, which, by the way, if you have an undefined center, it doesn't mean you don't know. It's not a black and white thing. It just means you have a more proclivity or a more, you're less susceptible to outer influence, is all the defined and undefined means. Yeah, it's not an is or isn't thing. Yeah. So even as a little kid, you had all these other labels that you thought were your identity, but underneath it, you've always been Alexa, the kind, you know, the personality that you are. Even doesn't matter if you're now currently struggling and what career do I have or what this do I do, but underneath it all, you've been defined this whole time. Yeah, because you're less susceptible to outer influence when other people have told you. Yeah, but yeah, massage it lightly, feel it out.
Yeah.
I would also imagine, like, just sort of looking forward, that like which gates define that center and what planet defines that center has a big influence too.
Thank you. And what was your name?
Jay.
Jay. Thank you, Jay. Precisely. Because as you'll see here, do you see how, well, this chart isn't maybe as easy to see, right? Let's just pretend that this identity center is defined, so it'll have color. But even within that, you'll see that certain gates have nothing happening to it. Again, it's not that you'll never not have that gate or have the inflammation of that gate or the characteristic or the traits of that gate. It just means that it's less active or less influenced or more influenced depending on what's lit up and what's not. But we are not a fixed black and white entity, right? That is another thing human design tries to teach you. These are just your proclivities. You can still struggle upstream, and there are certain times where you should struggle upstream a little bit, right? It's just part of the human experience. That is a should. But in general, if you can just remind yourself on a soul level, oh no, this is who I really am. ah, that feels good. And it should feel good and not oh my God, like, screw me. How can I not match my chart? It's meant to hopefully encourage you. Yeah. But yeah, massage it out a little. That's a great question. And thank you for bringing that up. And I still don't understand the deepest levels, the planetary alignments and all that. Yeah, I am not an expert in this, by the way. Yeah.
I just had a really brief question. I'm sure you'll get more into it, but I just wanted to clarify my understanding of the gates. Are those how, say, like the spleen and the sacral connect to one another? And then if they're not fully, like they're hanging, like you said, then that is almost like an undefined connection that we're still kind of figuring out.
We will talk.
Okay, I'm sure.
Yes, yeah, I know. What
Partially defined.
Yes.
Okay.
We will get into all that in part 2.
Okay.
Yeah. And I found, I'll get to you in a second. I found as a trained teacher, I was so excited about all the other stuff first.
Mm-hmm.
But without the foundation, I got more and more lost in the weeds and more in the brain and more, it just all got imbalanced. Yeah. Start off simple. We are meant to actually know our type first, right? Because that's the overarching umbrella. But only looking at that is like saying something as simple as, well, sure, you're just a Taurus. Well, hell no, I'm not. Neither are you, or whatever sign you are. And so, of course, we're going to trickle down eventually. But the more that you understand the basis of how this is, like how you got your type is literally what centers are defined and undefined. Those are the types. And then I'll talk about auras in a second, and you'll see on a holistic level, a zoomed out level, how this all works for, well, no wonder why this percent of the entire planet are generators, but only 1% of the planet are reflectors. And guess what? Reflectors have no defined centers. Only 1% of the planet. And I've met 2 people here in Seattle who are reflectors out of everybody whose charts I've looked at.
So I was just curious, like, is there any human being where all the gates are open or connected?
No, yeah.
Like even the ascended masters.
You know what? I mean, it'd be interesting if you could know there, but I don't.
If you go back one,
yeah,
I think something that might clarify. So each planet is associated with a number, and then that number is what defines a gate. And then if you have 2 gates on either side that are both defined, that's what defines both centers. Okay.
In a nutshell, you are absolutely correct. Yeah. But don't get lost in that. It's okay. Yeah.
I think people were wondering and didn't understand, so I thought just like
no, please. And I want anybody to jump in. Everyone here is an exchange teacher, and we're co-creators together. Yeah. And I certainly am not the expert at all. But yes, to your point, when we get into the weeds of this, we'll begin to understand how the planet stuff interrelates to all of this. Yeah. Which then interrelates to each number, which then on a certain given day, that channel is less active or
So everyone has the same number of gates defined, but we don't all have gates that connect, and that's what defines us.
Correct. Yeah. And notice he said the same number of gates defined, not the same number of centers, right? Gates, though, which is amazing to think that is part of our oneness, that same number, which I don't even know what that number is, but now I'm going to look it up. Is it 6? There's a design number. Yeah, because the profile lines, I know.
13 times 2, 26.
26, yeah. There you go. There's something to that. I gotta look into that more.
The connection, like the edges represent
the edges. The numbers represent the gates.
all the numbers.
Yeah, and the numbers are all tied. You'll notice that no matter what, 48 is going to be found in the spleen center, right? So that doesn't change, but whether or not it's activated for you depends on all those factors.
Okay, I guess I'm confused with the connection, like like the edges in that graph, like yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
The lines, the channels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So also,
What about them?
so they're channels.
Yeah.
So why are some channels built, some others not?
Would you?
Yes. So
It's a great question.
everybody has, like, for instance, 19 to 49, this channel. But in this chart, they have 39 defined because
Right there.
uh,
Let's say 39, 30.
because that's their sun.
Oh.
So their sun was in house or in spot 39 when they were born, and that defined their 39th channel. And then in this person, they have 44 and 28 defined, and because they connect, that defined these two centers.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Yeah. But we're going a little ahead, which is why we didn't go.
No, it's great though. We all can use a preview.
Right.
And again, I would just advise, and you don't have to take this, don't get too lost in the weeds just yet. We'll start off simple, but yes, for you to know what this all is, every single number here corresponds to the number that's active or inactive on the chart, right? You can see here 44. Well, where am I finding my 44? It's an exact, you can draw arrows to everything. We can even technically ignore these and then just look at what's active here. Slowly, yeah. I mean, it really takes some time, but living it out is actually what will allow you to truly integrate, because even now it's still living, a lot of it is in my head.
Do you just circle?
Yeah. This one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead.
Oh, it doesn't have the planets written on here, but it's like you would have like your sun. This is like a regular birth chart, right? You've seen the circle.
Right. Well, there, yeah,
right.
it's
but
here.
it's like if your sun was here,
Yeah.
it would be in the 6th gate. Oh, right. Yeah.
Just one aspect alone of human design. And again, human design is the I Ching, the Jewish Kabbalah system, the Hindu-Brahmin Chakra system, quantum physics, which is all that neutrino stuff I mentioned, and astrology. So it's all 5 of these things together. But even just examining one bucket alone will take hours and hours and hours. So, but the way it all comes together is really fun, because I just start off with, when I was into this, I was like, holy crap, I am a generator. Like, no wonder this, and this. All right, so this makes a whole lot more sense, right? If we start with type, right? Getting started, we go from type, then we go to something called strategy, then we go to the authority, then we go to the not self and the signature themes. Okay, so in terms of learning, it can trickle out really nicely that way. In terms of learning, do you have to follow it this way? Of course not. Pick piecemeal and pick whatever resonates with you the most. And Jay, please chime in at any point. Please do.
Yeah, for sure. Especially,
yeah. And so earlier I mentioned reflectors are 1% of the planet. They have no defined centers. They are highly susceptible to influence, but it also makes them the perfect vehicle, 1% of the planet, with which to reflect back to humankind who or where they are, who they need to be, so on and so forth. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And this, by the way, manifesting generator, sorry, I'm missing one. There's 5 types. What am I talking about? There's a manifester. Yeah, there's a manifester. Why did I miss that? Terrible. Okay, but a manifester is one of the types here. Yeah, sorry, that should have been right after the manifesting generator. A manifesting generator is a generator with manifesting qualities. And then there's a manifester that is pure manifester. I have one friend named Sierra who is pure manifester, and she is a quantum effing leaper. Things happen so fast when she is aligned. But it's not to say, well, but I'm just a generator. That's what I thought. No, I mean, we all have all those abilities, and the types, the archetypes of the types of the energies of the types are within all of us. So don't feel bad if you're like, oh man, it'd be so cool to be a manifester, because I see my friend Sarah manifesting all these things. No. We are all meant to play different roles. And generators really, and I'll show you in a second, we really are the builders of this planet, and the majority of the planet are generators. So most of us sitting in this room will be, but those of us that are projectors, you're meant to be the guide. Reflectors, the mirror, the multi-passionate.
How many? Which one are you?
Generator. Yeah.
There's kind of like 4 real types and then manifesting generators.
The subtype, yes, you're right. And I can't believe I left off manifester. Yes, the manifester, yeah. The manifestor is the initiator of ideas. They are meant to start new things in this planet. Yeah, and then the generator and the manifestor are a perfect combo because after my friend Sierra comes up with that idea, I use my powerhouse to execute. Yeah, very almost in corporate terms, right? Like what are the roles that we all play? Yeah. And voila, yes.
How does so the manifestor is the one that initiates it? How does the projector guide that?
There are, we'll look, when we get into the types and why they are the way they are, we'll answer that question. Yeah. How are they working? Well, how are all of the types working in conjunction with each other? There is a reason why most of the graph is made up of generators and generators with manifesting qualities. That is the majority of the pie. There's a reason why we don't need that many manifestors right now in this 21st century. But guess what? Back in, I don't know, ancient times when certain evolutionary progress was being made, I think during the Enlightenment age, right? Or during the Renaissance, there are a hell of a lot more manifestors and projectors in that during that time. But now in this 2024, this is what's working for our planet. Well, you could say not working. It's supposed to be working. We all could live out our blueprint, but there is a reason why in other past times that reflectors were probably a lot more ubiquitous. But yeah, this is how it comes out to be. And let me see if there was a note that, yeah. We're all like puzzle pieces that fit all together, right? We all play that unique role. And starting with understanding your type, then strategy, then authority is going to be a good point in allowing you to understand your energetics before we dive into the gates, the channels. Ooh, yeah, that was a long time.
So, like,
yeah, go ahead.
These aren't just sort of like the mathematical averages then, because like if you just sort of had random birthdays and random birth times, that would be a specific setup of these, right? So like that's interesting, implying that we are sort of smoothing our birth times around a little bit to make sure I'm a generator, to make sure I'm a manifestor. I don't know.
Well, you're alluding to something amazing. It's all in those pre-birth planning books if you read them. Our souls, the souls being born now, they come in with full backpacks, if you get my drift. They really are on a soul and spiritual level equipped to freaking handle shifting or helping mankind shift into a higher consciousness. So all the little babies being born now are anyone under the age of like 7 right now. They're quite powerhouses, and they come in with very unique designs specifically for the purpose of this time that we're in. But like you said, I mean, mathematically, yes, it could be very different. But Ra Uru Ha, who channeled all this, he was the one who explained, well, this is why, because we live in this, we're not in the Enlightenment age of that Renaissance period. Well, in that time, it really was helpful to have so many more of this type and that type. I suppose when they were building pyramids, they had a combo of probably all the generators that they physically needed to move that rock, and then a lot of like projectors and reflectors and manifestors, probably a whole lot more. You know, we were operating along with the planets way more in ancient times than and the skies and cosmos than we are now. At least, maybe not. Yeah, that could just be our illusion. Right. So let's get into it because we only have 45 minutes left. Do you see what I've just described with reflectors? None of those centers are defined. There's no color in them. For a generator, these specific things are defined in such a way, and I'll describe it to you real quick. So your type is determined by the combination of your defined and your undefined centers. A generator will always have a sacral defined. Yeah.
Does it have to be those compilations of defined and undefined? It's just like
yeah, these are just examples.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the most accurate. Well, there's no defined centers yet, but a generator it's not exactly this yet. But the one trait it does have is that generators have their sacros defined. Yeah. If you have an undefined sacral, you just cannot even be a generator by that type.
So if you have like a single definition, you only have one of those lit up, right?
There are other traits. I'm going to pull that up because sometimes I forget. There are other elements for you. Here's that's a manifestor, right? For the trait of a manifestor, and right now I'm forgetting what those exact things are, but for a generator, as I've said, you have to have a defined sacral. To be a manifestor, your throat and your identity have to be defined and connected. There's always a connection. You think about what manifesting is, it's taking it out and coming in and making it appear, right? So that is a pure manifestor. Yeah, no matter what, they will have those traits. And I guess I don't have in my notes what that is, but I might, let's see. In the aura, I might get into it a little bit in terms of what happens with the energy, but sorry, I've forgotten what those elements are that define what a manifesting generator is. Actually, well, it's actually pretty simple. The manifesting generator for sure is a generator. It has a defined sacral, but it for sure has a defined throat. And there's supposed to be a connection, right, Jay, between the throat for the manifesting quality. If you just look it up, you will find, what makes a generator, and then it'll be, they must have a sacral, or they must have this, and they must have that. Yeah.
What about the projector?
The projector, I think, I don't remember, honestly. Yeah, if you were to Google that real quick, you could find that.
I think it must just be the identity, because that's all that I have. I don't have the other three that are lit up.
Defined identity?
Yes.
Yeah, because you're meant to be initiating from within that identity. And so you know very well on a deep level what that looks like for the planet. And you can see big pictures. Every projector that I've ever met, they are such amazing big picture leader type people. They see the forest and not the trees. They don't have to see the trees. They can see the forest for the trees. Yeah. Okay, and now we get into the aura. This is just a preview, right? Aura, it literally says closed and repelling. It doesn't mean that you are a closed and repelling person. That's not what that means. It just means the way your mechanics of your energy are meant to work at its highest realm. It is a good thing to be closed and repelling because you're meant to move through Earth to close off and repel back certain energies so that the world can get to where it needs to go. Focused and absorbing, open and enveloping. You could see the way it's illustrated. Reflector, resistant and sampling, right? With all those blue circles around. So I'll go with each one.
What's interesting, okay, so I'm a manifesting generator, right? And it's closed and open.
Yep.
Right? So closed and open. And the main thing that I got from reading a little bit about it was that basically like you have to accept that you don't do things linearly. Like because you're open and closed both, you have to like go with the flow. So that's really interesting. I I didn't think about it in like the closed and open. Yeah, I like too that also the generators are going out and in. It's like a lot of fun. But in a good way.
Your auras, we'll talk about that. It's open and it's supposed to go out to grab you back in. Right. We are grabbing as generators and we're absorbing into it because through that our life force, we can channel that back out into like literally building a pyramid or whatever it is we're doing. But to your point, Nico, yes. My friend Sierra, who is a pure manifestor, she is not at all linear, and she has for a long time in her life. She's in her late 40s now, but she beat herself up so badly because the world operated this way, and she was not this way. And the more she discovered, no, I'm meant to be nonlinear because the nonlinear serves humankind, then things became a whole lot easier.
Yeah, when you try to go one way or the other, then it's just like your energy flow just stops. But like you let the creativity like happen in the way that it's supposed to and flow with yourself, then that takes a lot of learning.
Yeah, we will get into the And right here, this is where we have the strategy. We'll get into the strategy in a second, because the strategy tells you how to best utilize your energy, and authority as well, in a way. Yeah, but that is where you can then absorb into or integrate the fact that, oh no, I'm not meant to, if I'm feeling a certain way, I'm meant to be okay with this nonlinear progression or whatever it is that's, you know, irksome or in conflict with you. Yeah. Here we go. So now we get into the generator. Raise your hand again if you are a generator. Do you think you are? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. A generator, they have the energy that sustains all the fire of this life, right? You're meant to be lit up by what you do. And in terms of even an excitement or happiness level, if you are doing something that is very draining and quenches your fire instead of lights it up, it's not that you can't or don't do it, don't have to do it. You know, not everything should light you up, like picking up trash from your bedroom. But on a holistic level, you are meant to be doing something where at the end of the day, when your head hits the pillow, you are so maybe physically drained, but you're deeply satisfied and lit up on the inside. And so that waiting to respond element, we're going to talk about that in a second, but yeah, strategy, we're meant to wait to respond to the world as manifestors and other people give us assignments. And then when we feel that lit upness, then we can say yes to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, here we go. Manifestor. And how many of us are manifestors?
Apparently, manifestors are undefined sacral center. Throat is defined and connected to a motor center.
There we go. Some motor centers, yeah. One of which is the sacral. Yeah. And so there's the spleen, there's the heart. Yeah. So they always have a defined throat connected to a motor center. That's what it is. Thank you. Yeah. The manifestors are the spark that lights the fire. The generators are the ones that hold the fire and fuel the fire, but the manifestor are the ones who are meant to light the fire or to even start the fire, right? Manifestors have the energy to get things started. They move very quickly. They are called quantum leapers for a reason, and they have the capacity to transform energy into action. Yeah, they are meant to do that. Whereas generators have the capacity to put energy continually in motion and not necessarily to take non-energy into action. Every type is interconnected to each other, right? And manifestors are here to start things. They're innovators, they're trailblazers. I believe Steve Jobs was a manifestor. I have to double check. But again, the caveat is that just because you have that energy or inclination, it doesn't mean that it's always meant to be started or not started, right? The discernment of knowing when and how is also a crucial part in an experiment with human design. And so honor your urges. For manifestors, they essentially, their strategy is waiting to inform because they need to wait for the signal within them with which to do what they do. And there seems to be a lot of waiting, but this waiting is not a passive waiting. This waiting is an alignment waiting. It's an active waiting. It's a allowing for you to be the best co-creator with the universe. And then, so far, we have manifestors, generators, and then the combo, which is Nico, right? Yeah, you totally are not just a generator. You have the manifestor qualities, right? So there you have both. I mean, it's just a combo, waiting to respond and inform. If you ever want to just deep dive into your strategy, all you have to do is just keep Googling, well, what does it mean to respond and to inform? And there will be a whole lot of people to tell you, well, I mean, this is how it plays out. But the best thing that I can advise you on is just experiment with it, play with it, and see how it really turns out in real life. And you'll be surprised that the river seems to be flowing more downstream than it is upstream. And also because you've stopped energetically paddling upstream. You can see the manifestor and the generators seemingly a juxtaposition or a paradox of an aura, but that is also why we need manifesting generators. the projector, and Alexis, you're a projector, right? Is anyone else a projector? Yes, 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 you would be. You have that wisdom. You have that aura, okay? Penetrating aura. Very, very penetrating aura. What does that mean? You're here to guide energy, projectors. Yeah, you and Josh are here to guide energy. You have an openness to life, and you have an innate wisdom that other people need. Absolutely. Yeah. You're able to see the bigger picture. You recognize talents and gifts in others. And you can see what the fire needs to keep glowing. You can see what the fire needs to keep glowing, what energy is needed. The caveat is waiting for the invitation. Now, this is not a literal invitation, like me telling or inviting Alexis or Alexa, excuse me, or Josh to do something. It is a spiritual invitation. It can even be just a sign that tells projectors, do this or contact this. But until you get the sign, you're meant to be actively waiting or be resting in the fact that divine timing is a thing, and you doing something without that invitation. Every projector that I know has struggled so much with, not feeling seen or heard, or things going awry because they didn't know that they were going to be waiting for the invitation. Yeah, and it's caused a lot of frustration for my projector. my ex-William, I mean, so much. Yeah, it was very obvious. Yeah.
Does that mean other types don't have an invitation?
Other types don't have an invitation? No. Yeah, other types have invitations, yeah. But it's not their strategy is the best way to harness that energy. Yeah, the best way to harness the type of energy that you have. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that if you're not harnessing it, that something's wrong with you or you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing either. Again, it's not a black and white world. Can a generator receive an invitation? Sure. Yeah. Does that invitation light them up? That's the question for generators. Yeah. Okay, and then one more, reflectors. The 1% of the planet, my two friends, Curtis and Craig, they before they do and take action, like not take action like I need to go buy toilet paper, that kind of action, but bigger action, like life actions, right? Life decisions. Before they do that, they should probably, it's within their energetic field to wait for a lunar cycle for that clarity to come. Because they need a full cycle with which to stipulate, okay, what is an external influence that I want to receive and what do I not want to receive? And from there, make the clearest, most defined decision for themselves. Yeah.
Part of it is they have so little understanding of what they feel that it's important for them to go through the whole cycle. So they sort of like see what they're like in all the situations and all the different energies. And then they're like, oh, okay, it wasn't just, I felt this way in this moment.
Yeah. Yeah,
so influence.
Very influenced.
Exactly.
They should wait a full lunar cycle to feel out every single stage of that cycle. Yeah, and then find the clarity from there. Thank you.
Good question. Just the generator. What was that? The waiting for the generator. I just am trying to remember.
Oh, waiting to sorry.
Waiting to respond. Okay, okay. And that's the strategy. That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
That is the strategy. No, that's on me. That's the strategy. Yeah. And strategy tells you how best to harness your energy. And for many generators, at least for me, I never waited to respond. I just responded all the time. And I said yes to many, many things that were not for me. Many, many things and people that were not for my highest good. And that's okay. No need to beat yourself up. But now that you know what it is like, and for those of you who are, whatever it is, Google your strategy and really read on it and then experiment with it. See how it really plays out in your real life. Because now that I know consciously what it means to wait to respond, but then integrating it is a whole new thing. But now that I've had some time to practice it, holy moly, things are way more flowing downstream and way more smooth when I don't respond, because I then can check in with my sacral. That's the authority part we'll get into. And then, oh, this is a yes, or this is a no. And for those of us with sacral authorities, you could feel that yes or no. Do you feel tightness in your chest versus an openness in your chest? Do you feel, all these markers that can tell you what your sacral or your gut, literally your gut, is telling you? Yeah. But I've spent my whole life going against my gut. I was trained that way. All of us are. We're all conditioned, right? The whole human design process is to decondition. All right, and then last but not least, reflectors, right? Those dang reflectors, right? They are here to see and reflect back the health of the fire. One more time, they're here to see and reflect back and assess the health of the fire. You notice how we all have different roles when it comes to the fire, right? Initiating the fire, manifestors. Fueling the fire, generators. Reflecting back the fire's health and seeing what else needs to be done, reflectors. And then seeing what keeps the fire burning, or maybe it shouldn't burn, projectors. Yeah. Lots of different elements. And yeah, they will magnify and reflect energy wherever they go.
So for manifestors and generators, or sorry, manifesting generators,
Yeah.
Is it just like you do a little of both in terms of?
If you're a manifesting generator, you are first a generator, and you have manifesting qualities, i.e. the throat connected to one of your motor centers. Yeah.
So like sometimes you spark yourself,
You-
but also
You're meant to,
spark
yeah,
other
you're meant to
people.
do both. Yeah, depending on the context, the timing. Yeah, and so when we go back to your strategy, right, waiting to respond and inform, and in other human design books and things on the internet, they phrase it a different way. You're meant to, yes, it's a little bit more complicated,
Yes.
but it's so much more fun, you guys. I wish I was a generator. Because when you know when to respond, if this lights you up, and you know when exactly to push that initiation out, then things really happen very fast. It's both. But you have to wait to do both at the right timing.
Yeah, that's why it's non-linear, right? It's like you can't, no matter how much you want to go in a certain way and work in the way that everyone else does, and that linear way, even with like, I think about like me teaching, like I'm like, to do it like this, and it's just like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You have to do it. You have to listen to your gut and your intuition, and you have to be very aware of when something is right and when it's not.
And your gut, especially as generators, your sacral authority is going to tell you what's what. It will light up or not light up, and then you'll know the timing from there. Yeah, it all corresponds and builds off each other, but you would listen to your gut and not respond right away.
It just seems like it's like a little bit more of a complex way of doing it. There's nothing like super straightforward all the time.
See, look at how Miko is already reaffirming who she is. You are being a friend to yourself, my friend. Which is exactly what human design is meant to do. Yeah. Okay. We talked about all that. We previewed all that. Now you can see what it is that is on paper. And again, I will take this entire PowerPoint and send it all to you. I have each of your emails on that clipboard somewhere. And so don't worry about taking any notes.